The expectations were high for this one.
You didn't like it?
So we literally just finished watching Tiger 3 in Times Square, and this is our fresh review.
Thoughts right off the top of the head. Just came out seeing it. Popcorn still on our breath. So let's see. Let's start with you. What'd you think? Because you've got more history with this franchise, than I do. More expectation out of these actors. So what did you think as a more experienced fan? What do you think of this?
Malik, I came out this movie, and I think you can tell me and you are very different feels right now, because I think this was such a disappointment. The build-up was crazy. Listen, the build-up was crazy. I thought Tiger 1 and 2 was good. War was doing their thing. Pathan got a little iffy towards the end, but I was like, it's not going to get worse than that. And in my opinion, it got worse. Tell me.
So, okay. So you want to give your number first before I go into mine? Because I think we both had it as a 6, Pathan. So coming off of that, what's your number for the Tiger 3?
So let's go through it. Okay. So the film's plot is very simple. It's just like the way the trailer starts. Tiger is going through another mission, and basically he becomes a traitor in the sense because of Emraan Hashmi's character. And one thing I did like, I'll give this movie, I believe everything up to the intermission, even though it was more foolish than I expected in the sense of action sequences off the bat, even though they promised us a lot better. Ignoring some of the I just accept it as fun. I think the first half for me was solid, in the sense that it got rid of all the trailer nonsense. Everything I was expecting was fresh.
Okay.
So everything you saw in the trailer is mainly the first half. After that, it's basically him trying to save his name and save Pakistan, which we'll get into a bit more into this review. But that's how the plot goes. But I think the second half started and it got really contrived. So that's where we're going to differ. But since me and you agree that the first half was the trailer, basically?
Yeah, a lot of action set pieces they showed off. A lot of the stuff to get you interested. What situation is Tiger in this time? This was definitely a lot of that was in the front, so they can have their dramatic payoffs, we'll call it, in the second half. So, yeah.
Okay. So since we agree with that, I didn't mind that. That's what we expected. So that doesn't take off any points. So story-wise, I think it was coherent enough. Obviously, there's plots and twists that you expect from Bollywood movies. So let's talk about where we think the story. I think it was a given that we thought the acting was fine.
Yeah.
I think the thing that carries this movie so throughout the whole movie was actually the visuals. I think the cinematography was really good.
Yeah, watching these movies recently, you can tell although there's a few years between a lot of these films, you can see the visual presentation just get better and better each one, and right off the bat. And this looked the best, very stunning, especially a lot of the establishing shots of when they're in Russia, when India, Pakistan, the different countries they're in. It's you could tell it just looks crisp, especially a lot of the natural environments that they're in. So
yeah. And then now this is where I think the movie starts to go downhill. The intermission, I think, starts strong, and it's what we were all looking for. I think we see it was promised to us, so it's not a spoiler, I don't think. They get Pathan's scene,
right,
which was fun.
It was. I think that the crossover scene in Pathan was actually better than in this one. I think the train scene was a lot more coherent, a lot more straight to the point. It's point A to B. Okay, you saved them, now we gotta get off the train. And this one, I won't go too much into spoilers, but it's a little loosey-goosey. It's a little more okay, how are they gonna, not really seeing how they're gonna get from A to B until it's happening. Yep. Basically, you don't see how that scene is gonna end until it, ends. Basically, when they're on the train, okay, they're working their way up to the front of the train, or somehow they're gonna stop it or get off or whatnot. But in this one, it was way more flying by the seat of their pants, which it very much in the same way that logic went out the window in the train scene. Logic definitely went out the window when they got back together. That's what I was thinking to myself. Like when these two are on the screen together, logic cannot handle them.
It just doesn't go.
Physics, nothing. It's just like okay, they're together. Let me take a back seat. So.
Yeah, so I'll say we agree the fact that it was enjoyable. So anybody watching this, that scene definitely is an enjoyable scene, but it doesn't live up to the caliber I believe the Pathan scene was. And yeah, that was foolish also, but that just felt more natural, just the action sequences. And like this one, I could see it. They were trying to. It just didn't hit in that same sense of like when you see the helicopter coming. It didn't run that smoothly like the way the train scene hit in Pathan. So. But the crowd reaction was crazy, which I'll also point out, which was very interesting. Because I've noticed we're watching it in Times Square, but Pathan was sold out for IMAX day one and everything. Tiger 3's promotion, maybe that's the problem, but our theater was filled, but it was a smaller theater. The crowd only popped for Shah Rukh Khan, which was kind of crazy.
Especially like in the beginning, the big like Tiger removes his scarf. It was kind of like, oh, cool. But like
waiting for it.
When Pathan shows up, everyone is like losing their minds. It was like, oh, okay, this is the reaction that like we were kind of expecting. So
yeah, so it was definitely. I was surprised by that. Maybe your theaters will have different reactions. So I want you guys to tell us what you guys think. And then now this is where the movie I think personally started getting convoluted. I liked the drama until a certain point because I felt like the movie kept going with the characters that we had. They did have a lot of Easter eggs from Tiger 1 to Pathan, which was good for a universe movie. But this is where the movie starts getting iffy. The acting's fine. One thing I'll have to admit I laughed at is whenever Salman Khan tries to cry, it looks like he's trying, but I can't tell if it's like natural.
It's like he's been badass the entire movie, and they're like, okay, now you have to cry. It's like seeing Tiger like cry almost is like unnatural. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like seeing like your dad or something cry. Like it's just like you don't really do that, do you? You know? So it's definitely like too like really not what we're used to seeing like Tiger portray. So when he does cry, it's like, oh, it is a little awkward. It is a little like, oh, ooh, you know. But,
yeah. So I think that's where I get is different. So we agreed the acting was good. We agree the crying was whatever. Cinematography definitely this film has. Now the story. This is the biggest key that I think this movie. It's like somebody adding a coherent story and then going, hey, what if we add a little bit more action, a little bit more of a twist, a little bit more of drama, and there are an emotion. Okay, there's supposed to be, I think, an emotional scene. I didn't feel too emotional when certain characters have. Well, let's just say, I think you can figure out what we're going after. We won't spoil it for you guys, but there are one or two scenes with certain characters. I think that their ending or resolution wasn't paid off well. Like it was like, oh, that happened to this person. Move on.
I think there isn't the level of investment that the filmmakers thought there was going to be for certain characters. So some of these payoffs felt a little flat. Some of these moments were like you were supposed to feel like, oh no, this person, and it felt kind of like, oh, that's sad, you know.
I think they could have made it emotional. I just think that I feel like the way they did it was there wasn't enough of a reaction from the characters in the movie. If there's no reaction from them, there's not going to be a reaction from us, I think.
I actually think the reaction, sort of what we mentioned with like Tiger and like his crying. If the actor on the screen, what they're portraying is what you're supposed to feel, and it felt awkward, then it felt a little jarring, then that definitely didn't communicate what you were supposed to feel in that moment. So I could definitely see that. But I thought from what I've seen, a lot of like Bollywood movies towards the end, they get a little twisty, you know, like it might
Some of them.
things
Most of them.
things get a little, at least these spy movies, like they're pretty straightforward throughout most of it, and the last half hour it's like twist and everything. And you know what I mean, it's so this movie did that, but I think it's like, okay, how well did that land? You know, I thought this movie definitely seemed to be the most dramatic of the YRF spy movies. I
Yep.
feel like they really, really wanted to make this one feel like the stakes were very high. Hence, some of their choices with some of the cast and some of the characters, but it didn't always hit. And when the drama doesn't really hit, you're just left looking at all these turns, and you're like, "Well, what was that even for?" So we kind of mentioned this in the beginning. Now we gotta circle back around to it. What'd you think? If what was your score for this one?
I'll be real. Maybe it's because I'm definitely gonna do a spoiler review for this because I can't hate on this movie or tell you guys what I don't like without spoiling it. So I'll actually let you give me the review, what number you're gonna give it. Your final review. I'll try to maybe see if I can agree with you on it, and we'll see what we can come together. What's your final?
Fresh out the movie, just not, I'll say I'll give it a 6. It was definitely could have been better,
Okay.
but just off the top of my head, I walked away from it not feeling like it was terrible or like well, not majorly disappointing. You know what I mean? Like I'm kind of like, okay, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but I thought it was fine. You know, maybe if I think about it more, maybe that might change. But
Okay.
just fresh out, I'll give it a 6.
Okay, so okay, I was thinking about it while we were talking about this. I was thinking that because I think our lowest YRF Universe review was Pathan. And with Pathan, we gave it also a 6. Now, do I think this movie was better or worse than Pathan? That's the big question. And you seem to be giving it on equal level. But now that I think about it, the flying scenes in Pathan were pretty stupid. The ice skating scene came to my mind again. And I was like, that was also pretty convoluted. Maybe it was just because it was just more entertaining. At first, I was thinking of giving this movie. I was telling Malik when I walked out, I'm like, yo, I think it's a 4 or a 5. But now that I think about it a bit more, I'll give it the 5. But I'll give you also I can see your points also. So I'll give it. I think. How about this? We both give it a 5.5.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I definitely feel like, to me, the main difference between Pathan and this one is like tone.
Yep.
This, like I said, this one was trying to be very dramatic, more serious, high stakes. But Pathan is definitely a little more lighthearted. Although it does have its own drama, it's also just trying to entertain you instead of trying to make you cry. So that's the difference between like the two 6s that I give to both of them.
Okay. So your review will be a 6. I'll give it the 5, and the final verdict will be a 5.5.
Yeah, we'll split the difference there. I feel that feels fine.
Okay. So personally, this comes under my ranking of the last place. Especially, I think it's maybe because we had high expectations for this film. I would say it's a watch, but I don't know if I would recommend or tell people watch it in theaters, honestly.
This might be you catch it when it's on streaming, when it's on Amazon Prime eventually,
I still want the YRF Spy Universe, though. I still think the characters are good. I think the characters are what are good, and I want to see it.
Definitely. Yeah, that's just off the reaction. Like, Pathan's reaction when he came in, nothing was like
They're enjoying the best part of the
higher.
movie.
So, yeah.
Okay, so tell us what you guys think. Were we too harsh? Were we too nice? Are you still invested in the YRF universe? Like, follow, and subscribe.